Dr. Zeftai's appendages trembled as she analyzed the final data stream from the archaeological site on Kepler 442b. The numbers couldn't be right. The carbon dating, the isotope signatures, the quantum resonance patterns, everything pointed to an impossible conclusion that would shatter the Galactic Consortium's understanding of evolutionary history. Impossible, she whispered in her native clicking tongue, her compound eyes reflecting the holographic display that showed the damning evidence. The fossilized remains weren't just similar to the bipedal creatures from the third planet of Sol system, they were identical. Down to the cellular structure, the DNA fragments that had somehow survived eons of cosmic radiation, even the distinctive cranial capacity that marked intelligence. For 3,000 years, the consortium had operated under a simple assumption: they were the elder species. The Zephyrians had achieved interstellar travel first, establishing colonies across 17 systems before the humans had even discovered fire, or so they believed. The Korvac Empire had built quantum computers while humans were allegedly still painting on cave walls. The crystalline Nexari had mastered consciousness transfer before Earth's dominant species had invented the wheel. But the archaeological evidence scattered across 47 different worlds told a different story entirely. Commander Voss of the Korvac Third Fleet felt his carapace crack under the pressure as he reviewed the reports flooding in from exploration teams across the galaxy. Every habitable world they'd surveyed, every ancient ruin they'd excavated, every prehistoric site they'd analyzed, all contained traces of the same bipedal species. The humans. The implications were staggering. If the dating was accurate and 17 different independent teams using various methodologies had confirmed it, then humans had been exploring the galaxy millions of years before any of the current elder species had evolved past primitive multicellular organisms. Sir, his aide, a young Korvac with still soft chitinous plates, approached nervously. The quantum archaeologists from the Vega system have submitted their final report. The human settlements there date back 4.7 million years. The technology signatures suggest they had mastered faster-than-light travel, terraforming, and consciousness archiving. Voss felt something cold settle in his thoracic cavity. Consciousness archiving, the technology his people had discovered only 800 years ago and considered their crowning achievement, had been mastered by humans when his species were nothing more than scavenging arthropods in primordial seas. On the crystalline spire world of Nexus Prime, Elder Resonancer Mara felt her harmonic frequencies destabilize as she processed the data from the deep space monitoring stations. For millennia, the Nexari had prided themselves on their ancient wisdom, their ethereal forms having evolved beyond physical matter into pure energy consciousness. They were the shepherds of younger species, the guides who gently nudged primitive civilizations toward enlightenment. But the energy signatures they detected from Earth's solar system weren't the chaotic emanations of a young species. They were the refined, controlled frequencies of a consciousness so advanced that it had learned to mask itself, to appear primitive while operating on levels the Nexari could barely comprehend. The human ships that visited their worlds weren't crude metal constructs powered by chemical reactions. They were sophisticated biomechanical entities that had learned to mimic primitive technology. The humans themselves weren't the loud, emotional, barely civilized creatures they pretended to be. They were something far older, far more dangerous. Every first contact scenario suddenly took on a sinister cast. The humans had never been surprised by alien visitors, they had been playing roles, carefully crafted performances designed to make the younger species feel superior, comfortable, unthreatened. Dr. Zeftai's research team worked frantically through the night cycle, their findings becoming more disturbing with each passing hour. The pattern was consistent across the galaxy, human settlements predating every known civilization by millions of years. More troubling still, the settlements showed signs of deliberate abandonment, as if the humans had simply walked away from advanced civilizations that could have conquered the galaxy, leaving only carefully placed archaeological breadcrumbs. But why? Why abandon such power? Why retreat to a single small world and pretend to be a young species taking its first tentative steps into space? The answer came from an unlikely source, a junior xenobiologist named Kretak, barely out of her molting phase, who had been analyzing human genetic material. Her discovery sent shockwaves through every research facility in the consortium. Human DNA contained inactive sequences, vast stretches of genetic code that appeared dormant but showed signs of deliberate modification. When activated using quantum resonance techniques, these sequences revealed themselves to be a form of genetic memory, a biological archive containing millions of years of accumulated knowledge and experience. The humans weren't pretending to be primitive. They were remembering how to be primitive. They had voluntarily suppressed their own advancement, locked away their godlike capabilities behind genetic barriers that were slowly, carefully being dismantled as their species naturally progressed. But why would any species voluntarily give up such power? The answer lay in the final archaeological site, discovered on a rogue planet drifting through the void between stars. The ruins there were different, not abandoned settlements, but monuments. Memorials. And the inscriptions, when finally decoded by the consortium's greatest linguists, told a story that chilled every species to their core. The humans had been the galaxy's first intelligent species. They had built an empire that spanned thousands of worlds, developed technologies that could reshape reality itself, achieved a form of transcendent consciousness that made them essentially gods among the stars. They had been benevolent rulers, guiding younger species, sharing knowledge, protecting the weak. But absolute power, even benevolent power, had consequences. The younger species became dependent, stagnant, unable to grow beyond what their human protectors allowed. Entire civilizations became little more than pets, comfortable but never truly free to reach their potential. The humans faced a choice: remain as eternal shepherds, keeping the galaxy safe but stunting its growth forever, or step back and allow natural evolution to take its course. They chose sacrifice over supremacy. The genetic locks, the abandoned settlements, the careful performance of primitiveness, it was all part of a million-year plan. The humans had deliberately reduced themselves, trusting that they would gradually remember their true nature only after the younger species had developed enough to stand as equals rather than subjects. Commander Voss stared at the final reports with growing horror. The human exploration missions weren't reconnaissance, they were inspections. Earth wasn't a young world reaching out to the stars, it was the seat of the original galactic civilization, slowly awakening from a self-imposed slumber. And across the galaxy, on every world touched by human diplomats, subtle changes were occurring. Old human technology was mysteriously activating. Long-dormant genetic sequences were beginning to express themselves. The sleeping giant was stirring. The younger species had spent millennia believing they were the teachers, the advanced civilizations guiding humanity into the galactic community. In truth, they had been the students all along, carefully watched over by being so advanced they could choose to forget their own godhood. Now, as human consciousness slowly expanded back toward its original scope, every species in the galaxy faced the same terrifying question: what would happen when humanity fully remembered what they once were? And more importantly, what would they do with species that had presumed to be their betters? The answer, Dr. Zeftai realized as she watched Earth's energy signatures continue to strengthen, would determine the fate of every living being in the galaxy. The original elder species was coming home.